Welcome to the 2-Minute Warning interview series, where we ask what is next and what should be next in the global energy transition. This is a huge question, and we're going to attempt to answer just a slither of it in today's interview, where I'm very happy to have 𝗣𝘁𝗶𝘁𝗶𝘃𝗏 with me today. He is the Chief Sustainability Officer at 𝗦𝘁𝗶𝘁𝗶𝘃𝗏 Holdings, which is headquartered in Dubai, and as many of us will know as MAF. He is also a Senior Associate at the Cambridge Institute for Sustainability Leadership and author of the book How to Net Positive, which is very useful because net zero is exactly what I'm going to kick off with today. 𝗣𝘁𝗶𝘁𝗶𝘃𝗏, thank you for joining us. And
thank you for the invite, Michelle.
No, we're very happy to have you with us. So let's just dive into net zero. I suspect from your book you've done a huge amount of research on that anyway, so it seems like a good starting point. We're all seeing this push for net zero playing out in the headlines globally in the last year, and latest estimates say that at least 21% of the world's 2,000 largest public companies have now committed to meet net zero targets, representing around $4 trillion in worth. Now, this is a huge change in scene for even 2 years ago, and when the Paris Agreement was being signed in that French capital, I don't think anybody could have imagined we'd be in this position by the early 2020s, even perhaps the most optimistic. So huge progress, but there are differing levels of quality when it comes to those net zero targets, different levels of standardization as well. And of course, MAF is the first Middle Eastern company to adopt a net positive sustainability strategy, really pushing that positive narrative through to make this positive change. So putting more into the environment than this company takes out by 2040. Obviously, you're very involved in this. From your perspective, how do you think the region's net zero and net positive narrative is going? How do you think it's doing?
Michelle, first of all, thank you very much for giving up the best definition for net positive, which is to give more than to about more than we take. Paris Agreement was a turning point. I was there myself, and that time I was seconded to the government, and I signed the commitment, the voluntary commitment for the built environment. And this is where the COP21 Paris Agreement, it showed the value of partnership between the private and public sector, and shows even voluntary commitments countries signed on their NDCs. So now they have to report on them to start with, and the evolution from Paris, from COP21 to coming soon COP26, out of technological innovation, sustainable finance, the pandemic, it showed the business as usual is officially dead. Maybe people will say it no longer exists. Thanks to COVID-19, it's officially dead now. What's the way forward? We've seen ethical consumerism is booming. We've seen alternative energy, renewable energy is going, costs is going even better and better and more efficient. It showed commitment from companies, countries. People want that. So the investments, the consciousness of companies, we saw a shift from shareholder capitalism to stakeholder capitalism. This showed push the methodology of how can I achieve my sustainable business targets by net zero and net positive. Net zero, by the way, to achieve the net zero commitment, it shows to cope the climate action status as per Paris Agreement as is. So it will not enhance our climate action. It will keep it as is. I personally believe net zero won't be enough. We should think beyond. If you want to unleash the innovation and of climate action, we should think how the companies, organizations, countries can give more to the environment to maintain that the degradation we see in the nature or the environment or the climate. So net positive is to be net zero, to be carbon neutral, but also to start putting back, to start thinking of producing clean water, which is a scarce resource. And you see now with the climate change, we see droughts all over, especially in this part of the world. Water is a very, very scarce and precious resource, by the way.
Well, in the MENA region, you're looking up to 14% of GDP by 2050 being at risk due to water shortages, and 70% of the region's GDP is exposed to very high water stress by this time. So it really is this perfect storm brewing with natural resources.
We see countries like Jordan now telling their citizens Get ready for summer. You're getting the water once a week. You may get it once every 2 weeks. So you see geopolitical things related to water between countries. And
that's now, not even 2050. Exactly. That's now.
So put environment aside. From a pure risk assessment for business or civilian for a country, we have to think this into action. All this accelerated for climate action, technological methodologies, commitments. We've seen more than 300 companies just during the pandemic committing to net zero. We've seen countries like China, Japan, UK committing for net zero. So we've seen that movement, and the response for this movement is, okay, net zero is good, but how? So now we started talking about the how, and the how unleashed a huge financial sector on sustainable finance, because investors said, okay, I would like to invest in environmental responsible companies, but also I would like to ensure that I'm relying on clean energy resources, because there might be at risk on my investment. This is one. The second part is we've seen also a push from markets. Green bonds.
Indeed, we're seeing green bonds, but the call again.
The transactions of green bonds.
There's been
Q3 2020 showed the highest more than $64 billion, the highest transaction green bonds since market inception. So there is an opportunity. There is an opportunity. There is an ethical commitment that we have to do, and there is a risk and compliance issue that we have to implement and commit to and look at it in our forecast as businesses. So this is.
I'd like to loop back to the water side of things, because it's very interesting to us, because one of the surveys we've done recently with industry, it became very, very clear that the energy industry in the Middle East and general businesses as well understand that guaranteed water shortages going forward are only going to intensify. But in terms of really appreciating how that will affect the day-to-day, how it will affect the bottom line on an economic, social, political basis, as you just touched upon with Jordan, those sorts of situations, which are very unnerving, really only intensifying. And the majority of them did not think of it that way. They very much thought of water as a resource that they need to manage at some point. They weren't thinking of it as, goodness, this could be the biggest threat to our business, let alone our day-to-day lives at home, in the next couple of decades. And I know that MAF has launched a pilot which uses a hydro panel technology and solar energy to convert air into clean drinking water. And I'd love to hear more about that, because especially as you're trying to become net positive in water as well by 2040.
Thank you very much, Michelle, for focusing on water, because usually, as you said, we take it for granted, although it is a resource that in some countries may, if you remember in 2 years ago in South Africa, that they were preparing people that you open the tap and you won't find water. They were lucky with having the rain. So we are aiming also to be net positive in water by 2040. And we have a full strategy on doing that, from mitigation, adaptation, looking at even water offsetting with farmers. So how we do that? One, we look at full circularity of water. So that covers investing in STPs, sewage treatment plants on site, efficiency, water efficiencies, awareness, how we use and smart usage during construction. And the latest now, we've been in the last 2 years, we're looking at technologies to get water from air. So we just, one of our pilots, the recent pilots, is we're doing an off-the-grid in energy and water to get water from air. So we're using photovoltaic panels to generate energy, to get water, condensate water from air, and we use it in our facilities in Tower 1, and even we're using some extra water for an urban farm that we created in our headquarters. Why we're doing this? We're doing this for two main reasons. Of course, we know arid, but in this pilot, we're looking for two main objectives. One, how we can utilize water off the grid from air to water into facilities and commercial facilities. And we're looking at this
scale. At scale.
The second part, with the urban farm that we're doing in the headquarters, how we can do exactly the same for farming as well. Imagine if this works, imagine the revolution will do in countries like, in continents like Africa. So technically, we are looking at, from a food security perspective, you can, if you have good soil, anywhere you can plant because you have access to water, which is, instead of digging wells, using
increasingly
unrenewable aquifers.
True in the west of the US as well. They're experiencing major droughts, and they have huge farming, farms, farming communities the size of small countries that are facing major droughts. And
this is not the first time.
Threats there as well.
Michelle, 2 years ago, I put a machine in my office. It makes 10 liters a day. I've been drinking air to water from our office, 10 liters a day. The only thing, it was connected to energy. The new thing of our pilot, so we started this 2 years ago. The new thing of the recent pilot is off the grid of energy. So it's carbon neutral, zero actually, we don't, and it makes at the same time water. So this is the recent pilot. I think we need to do more. I think the region need to invest in water security more. I think we need to invest even in the awareness of how people deal with water, because so far I think there is a huge gap.
And there's too much reliance on desalination as well.
Absolutely, as well as the access to water during even construction, during the service industry. We are blessed with a lot. The world stops in this part of the world, either in transit or for visiting, especially these days. So the awareness is so important, because at the end of the day, even if we have access to a renewable resource, we have to be smart and wise of how we use this. So it's a holistic approach as well as technological innovation, and I'm so looking forward to see that green tech. I think startups and green techs and young generation, this part of the world and globally, we will see a huge acceleration in their investments and their solutions, because they have passion and they are living the problem as well. So they want to give a solution for it. So I predict that we'll see a boom in green tech when it comes to environment and climate change.
In this decade, you see that happening in this decade, that boom?
Absolutely, we're seeing it happening now.
You see it happening. So you think by 2025, when it comes to green tech and when it comes to innovative water technology, the landscape will be entirely, do you think we'll be on the right track to hit the goal as a region?
Yes, I'll give you a good example. From renewables, we worked with a startup here in the UAE for photovoltaics renewables. Then we came up with the idea to do a power purchase agreement in Jordan, where we aim to have 90% minimum of our landlord area peak energy procured from an off-site clean power generation. We took them with us and we signed with them. We did a 20 years agreement. They managed to have access to investment with a very low rate, interest low rate, if almost close to nothing. And they secured even an EBRD loan for another project we'll do with them in Egypt. And that's a startup. The pilot we're doing here with, so the platform is open, and I think they will be the green tech startups. They will be the people who will be providing us with solutions. And I think post-COVID-19, we will see a lot of abundance of cash for investment. So people.
Well, you just mentioned the EBRD, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, and that they're planning to invest. Well, we're already halfway through the year, so I suspect they're very much underway. $2.5 billion in the MENA region this year in technology sectors.
Michelle, we did a project with them we did a project with them in Georgia a couple of years ago. We refinanced a full mall, green mall in Cairo, LEED Platinum, and we had energy efficiency targets and refinanced the whole project. Not only that, they even invested in a vocational training center. So we looked at.
Was it competitively priced, the refinancing?
Sorry?
Was it competitively priced?
Absolutely.
I asked because that's indicative.
Absolutely. Even the EBRD loan for that startup for renewables, it was very competitive. And that's one of the main objectives of organizations like EBRD. But even EBRD, you think of EBRD saying, okay, this is one of the main objectives. But I'm talking about venture capital in general. I think there will be a post-COVID-19, we have abundance of cash, and people would like to look at solutions to invest, and green tech will be one of the first options. Look at the green bonds transactions, as I've mentioned before, last quarter of last year, the highest since inception. We did 2 rounds of green bonds, 5 times oversubscribed from global investors. So there is an appetite, there will be an access to capital, and actually the prerequisite for access to capital will be an ESG. Environment, social, and governance.
ESG and roadmaps. That's something else very much that we're hearing, is that the money is there. It's not a question of shortage of money. Even, you know, recovering from what the IMF called last year the worst economic crisis in nearly 100 years. Still, there is money available.
Yes,
but investors, we find, are asking a lot more. We have the money, we want to get involved, but you have to show us more details. You have to show us a plan. It can't be, yes, I want to move down this green journey and I want to taste a few things off that green menu. You have to tell us exactly what you want for dinner, and that seems to be an area that still needs more development.
And we have a methodology for sustainable finance. We are ESG rated for the last 3 years. We are a low risk company by third party. So we have a green finance commitment. We have a third party review on that.
Yes, but you are extremely organized. You have your sustainability reports online. You have pages of your website committed to it. You in your role alone, you know, a lot of companies still don't have sustainability officers. So I think MAF is very much ahead of the curve in this conversation, but there'll be others who haven't quite gotten on the curve yet. You know, you're very much at the front of it.
But Michelle, that will be the new norm. If you want to have access to capital, no matter what, if you look at risk, companies now, investors are asking for an ESG, for sustainability policies. They ask, even if it's not related to energy efficiency or sustainability related. If I were, like, look at GRESB, Global Real Estate Sustainability Benchmark, which was almost 10 years, we've been Green Star with them. It's for investors, for pension funds in Europe, and they look at the financial sheets of companies as well as the rating in GRESB. They use GRESB rating to look at the sustainability sheets. Now, this will give them more confidence and low risk when it comes to brand reputation, when it comes to lawsuits, backlash. So it makes a lot of sense. Consumer
appetite as well, talent appetite. The whole picture has changed completely. Ibrahim, thank you so much for joining us today. We've really just touched the very, very tip of the iceberg. There's so much more that we could discuss. So I hope you join us again and we can delve in a little further. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michelle, for you've made this interview very interesting. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for reading all I can tell you read all our materials. So thank you for that. And thank you
cover to cover, Ibrahim. Cover to cover.
Thank you so much. Highly appreciate. We need more of you, Michelle.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to speaking again soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much.